to Tarot with Tonja. Maybe it's your first time here. What I'm working on is a series of videos that deal with the spiritual connections between words that have, to me, open words up, help us raise consciousness by seeing the language that we use in a different, more heart-centered way. So the words that I want to focus on today are vulnerability and boundaries and the relationship between those two. Usually I just focus on one, but these two have been so on my mind lately that I thought it was worth exploring them as a pair. So the root of vulnerability is VUL, and that connects to words like wound and wound, to turn, pull, tear, to Valkyrie, the death field goddesses in Norse mythology, and to the word vulva. It also connects to well and desire, and benevolence and malevolence. So quite an interesting pairing just in those two words. And to the word womb. Boundaries has a root of BHEU. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, BU, I suppose. But that is a word or a syllable that connects to the words to be, to exist, live, bondage, husband, bower, bowery, dwelling, tribe, and clan. So both words for me connect to life, our delicate dance between our emotional intimacy with others and maintaining our sovereign self. So how do we stay in the flow, stay vulnerable? And we can think about it in that way. We're open to people, to experiences, to feeling the depth of our own feelings, and at the same time to feel respected and safe, to maintain our boundaries in a way that's healthy and comfortable for each of us. So when we're born, we tear through the veil, that imagined curtain between spirit and life on earth. We have to break through this, and we're breaking through that boundary so that we can even exist here. As infants, we experience an incredible amount of vulnerability. I mean, it literally is a life or death for us. And swiftly, we learn that there are beings who can hurt us. So it's an incredible act of trust just to be born, to tear through that veil. And then we learn a lot about boundaries too, because as I mentioned, we can get hurt both physically and emotionally. So sometimes we develop boundaries that are so strong that they create a kind of bondage for us. We're so concerned about our safety, about not being trampled by others, that we create such strong boundaries that we're stuck inside them too. So how can we work to shed light on this, to see if those boundaries that we have made are serving us, and to have that openness when we so choose, especially in our intimate relationships where we're trying to be intimately connected, emotionally connected in healthy ways to others. So my instinct says that that place where we can keep this in balance, to keep it feeling right for us, open enough, and yet strong enough when we need to close off for some reason, that I think this dwells in the heart. When I meditate, I think about my heart chakra as being that cup, that chalice. So our root chakra, our sacral chakra, our third chakra, and the solar plexus, to me, make a base and stem. And then that openness sits in the heart area. And then it's fed by our throat chakra, our third eye chakra, and our crown chakras. And when they're open, and we're allowing all of that good energy and information, love, and trust to pool here in the heart, we have better guidance, I feel, to make those decisions about when we want to feel vulnerable, when we want to have boundaries that keep us safe. So let's see what the cards have to say about this connection between the words vulnerability and boundaries. And I am using the Crow deck today. I love this deck. I thought it might be nice to have a little animal energy because, you know, they don't have ego in the way that we do. And sometimes it's the ego where we get caught up and trying to decide if we need to make those boundaries stronger or not. So I'll shuffle a little bit here. And what I'm going to use is a relationship spread. So there'll be a card that's in the heart and then 3 cards for each word on the sides. And I'll show you those as I go through them. Well, that's funny. What fell out right away was the 2 of Wands. And I think of that as alliance. So we'll go ahead and start with that. That'll be our heart card. I'll say more about that in a minute here. And then one level of this is thinking, and another is in the heart, and yet another is in the physical reality. So interesting stuff already. Okay, so we'll go back to this card, this 2 of Wands. Alliance, again, is the way that I often think of it. It can be seen as a sparring, a kind of clashing for dominance. Here, I feel it is much more about that alliance, about how these two need to work in tandem so that we are our optimal selves. We can be open and loving, honest about the way that we feel, and to share that with the people we choose to share it with. And also to have those boundaries when we need to pull back. Maybe just to assess the situation more, maybe to protect ourselves, maybe just to feel like we have control over things that are really important to us, you know, especially when it's not any harm to any other person. All right, so there's our heart of the matter, the relationship between the 2 words. Now I've put boundaries on this right-hand side, and wow, what a bunch of intense cards came up. The first one being the 5 of Swords. In the Thoth deck, this is called Defeat. Another video I'd like to do too, talking about defeat and what that does to us. For me, the swords often are about fears that we might have. They're mental. They begin to sort of haunt us. And with that, uh, applying it to the word boundary here, I feel like we get the message from culture, from society, telling us that we have to have strong boundaries, that we can't be a doormat, we can't let people walk all over us. And yeah, that's true. At the same time, if we get so defensive that we're always worried about that, then I feel like we do defeat ourselves. We cut off opportunities. And I feel like that card is really reminding us, we don't want the dead crow on his back or her back here in that energy. So, in the next one, in the heart area, I feel we have the Ten of Swords, so it's another sword, so it's a mental one. And it's such a sad picture here with all of those swords stabbing our poor crow in the back. Yet the card often is read as the ending of something. Like, I'm not going to do this anymore. I don't want to, go this path. I want to change things. I need to change my perspective, my way of thinking, the way that I approach this. And because this is in the heart area in this particular relationship reading, I feel it's saying that, yeah, this can't go on. It's got to change. We've got to find that balance between intimacy, vulnerability, and boundaries. So I feel like that's what it's saying. We get another 10. Also, the ending of some sort of cycle, some way of being. And this one is the Ten of Wands. Uh, this crow is carrying a big bundle of sticks, wands in this case, as you can see, and is struggling to keep it aloft. It's hard work. And I feel like that is also encouraging us to change the way that we think about boundaries, the way that we act them out, how we enforce them, and to see it as a birthright for everyone that we have the right to have boundaries, we have the right to say no, we have the right maybe to be alone, whatever way it is that you might erect your boundaries. But if we're hyper vigilant about it, it can be exhausting. And that's what this crow is showing us in the Ten of Wands card. Very different cards on the other side with vulnerability. In the thinking realm, we have the High Priestess, and that's the only major card that came up today, so that seems really important. High Priestess is intuition, kind of a magic within by listening to that inner voice. Um, Traditional meanings of this card are bringing in the esoteric information and putting it down in writing, making a code of it somehow. Of course, here you have the priestess pouring the waters, the sacred waters of knowledge from higher realms down onto the chalice that sits on the earth so that it can be shared with us as we're in our earthly forms. So I feel like this really emphasizes that going within, checking with the intuition, listening to that sacred heart is the way to decide if it's good to be vulnerable in a certain situation with a certain person or not. She will know. And we all have this archetype within and can start to cultivate it, listen to it. The next card, which is in the heart area, is the Three of Cups. Threes are harmony. Threes are artistic, creative, flowing, wonderful energy for the heart, for the word vulnerability. They've knocked their cups over. They're totally enjoying whatever they can get out of them. It's almost a little sweet frenzy of drinking or being in their cups, we might say. So, back to the heart and also to the group, because the Three of Cups often is associated with groups too, groups that get along, groups that like each other, people who do well together. So you might even think of it as body, mind, soul as well. So, how does being vulnerable, yet having those boundaries, knowing what groups we feel safe and protected and loved in, versus those ones where we don't and maybe need to remove ourselves, something like that. This card speaks to all of that. So, our last card in the more physical or material realm for the word vulnerability today is the Page of Wands. Uh, Growing, right? You can see the open mouth here, the sun behind. It's such an energy of opening up and saying what needs to be said. And it's said in a way that's youthful. Pages represent youth. And messengers. So it feels very much like a message of yes, we can open up, we can be vulnerable, and know that when we need to return those boundaries, to erect them again, that we can do that. We have the energy, we have the protection, we have the love that we need to do that. So I hope that helps. Maybe you on your own can also explore the relationship between these two words, vulnerability, boundaries, what that feels like to you, and how you might be able to go forward and make changes in your life that you've been wanting to make by adjusting your relationship to these words in tandem. Thank you.